Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Yet another episode of Crushing Fantasy Football. I am Bryce Lockridge, your host of the show. All right, guys. It's officially the first week of the NFL season. It's here. So I'm not going to be doing as many draft videos now, and I'm going to start to focus on my in-season content. So this is going to be really fun. And what I'm doing today is I'm going to be talking about must-start players for week one. Now, I want to be very clear on what these must-start players are. These are not your obvious must-start players like Justin Jefferson and Bijan Robinson, right? These are guys that might not currently be in your starting lineup, but I want to encourage you to put them in your starting lineup. Now, I want to be very clear on what I mean by that. If you have players in your starting lineup that are locked in, set it, and forget it starters, do not force these players that I'm about to give you into your lineup just because they're on my list here. But if you feel like you don't like your matchup at your flex or at your wide receiver 2 spot or at your running back 2 spot, these guys are going to be very good substitutes for players that you don't feel like are going to have a very good week that are currently sitting there in your starting lineup because you drafted them higher. So if you're hesitant on starting one of your starters and you feel like they need to be replaced or you just feel like they don't have a very good matchup, these guys are going to be awesome guys to plug in because they might be on your bench right now, but they're going to give you starting upside and potentially really explode this week. So these are must-start players. So I'm going to start right here with the first player on my list, and I'm just going to combine these two players into one, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, right? Both of these guys are good options against Minnesota, guys. Minnesota last year had a secondary that was 31st in the league as far as giving up explosive plays, which means, 15 yards or more on a pass, a pass completion, right? So if a team completes a pass of 15 yards or more, that's an explosive play. They were second worst in the league as far as giving up explosive plays. This is not a good secondary. It's really not a good defense whatsoever. And you know that Minnesota has a great offense. So this game has some serious shootout potential, okay? This could be one of the higher scoring games on the slate because we know that Minnesota is going to be scoring a lot because that's what Minnesota does. They're an elite offense. And the Bucs are going to be having to sling the ball downfield a lot to keep up. So a poor secondary, a positive game script for both wide receivers because they're probably going to be playing from behind. And so even though a lot of people think that Mike Evans is on the decline and there's some skepticism for this season as to, whether or not he's going to be good or not, I really like him in this matchup, and I really like Chris Godwin as well. I love Chris Godwin from a season-long standpoint as well. But this week, I like both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin a lot. This is a bad defense for giving up explosive plays, and that's the bread and butter of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin in the Bucs offense. So even with the new quarterback, I love the matchup this week. If you need someone to replace your normal wide receiver 2 because you don't like their matchup or you're not sure who to play at your flex, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are great options this week. Next player on my list is going to be Johan Dotson facing up against the Arizona Cardinals. This is a very bad Arizona Cardinals defense. As we know, the Arizona Cardinals are projected to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Overall, I think they're going to be a little bit better than expected, but their defense does suck. This is a really bad defense. Obviously they have Budda Baker, which is kind of like the high point of their defense. He might be kind of an X factor that can kind of help them get over the hump this year and not be just the worst defense in the league. But they're still probably going to be the worst defense in the league. And there's a good chance that Terry McLaurin isn't playing week one with the turf toe injury that he's dealing with right now. And even if he does happen to get on the field week one, you've got to figure they're going to ease him into things. They're probably not going to give him that full-on Terry McLaurin workload yet until he's 100% from his injury, which means that a potentially huge week is coming for Johan Dotson. I think there's a very high likelihood that Johan Dotson is the focal point of this offense this week against an Arizona Cardinals team that absolutely and utterly cannot protect against the pass. The Washington Commanders are going to put up a lot of points on the Arizona Cardinals. I don't necessarily think that the Commanders are going to be that good of a defense from a season-long, or that good of an offense from a season-long standpoint, but I love their offense this week against the Arizona Cardinals, who have a laughably bad defense. Start Johan Dotson. This dude's going to explode in week one. Next player on my list is going to be J.K. Dobbins. Now, J.K. Dobbins, when you look at him, he's obviously had really bad injury history, but when this guy's been on the field, he's been awesome. 5.9 yards per carry in his career. This is freakish, crazy yards per carry efficiency. 5.9 yards per carry on a 225-plus carry sample size. That is some of the best yards per carry efficiency you're ever going to see from a running back on a 200-plus carry sample size. You can take the next 20 running backs that come in the league in the draft and monitor them over their first 200 NFL carries. Not one of them will have 5.9 yards per carry. The reason for this freakish, crazy efficiency for J.K. Dobbins is a combination of his size and speed. He's got elite athletic metrics as far as his size-speed combination. He's great at making cuts and juking people out. And, he's just great at creating big plays. And another big reason for this is because he has Lamar Jackson handing him the ball, and teams are so afraid of Lamar Jackson keeping the ball and running, so it sometimes diverts the attention off of J.K. Dobbins. It opens up bigger holes for him to run through. This dude's going to explode against Houston this week, guys. Houston has a terrible run defense. The Baltimore Ravens are going to be playing from ahead from the very beginning of this game through the end of the game, which means a huge workload for J.K. Dobbins this week. I think that J.K. Dobbins is going to have one of the biggest weeks of the entire season this week against the Houston Texans this week. He is a must-start player. Next player on my list is going to be Isaiah Pacheco. Now, you look at the Lions' defense, right? They gave up 5.2 yards per carry last year. This is absolutely terrible. Obviously, they drafted Jack Campbell, which is going to be the guy that they hope can help stuff the run this year and improve the run defense, but it's going to be his first NFL game. I don't think the Chiefs are going to be afraid to come out. In fact, I think they're, forget not being afraid. They're going to jump at the chance to test this Lions run defense in week 1. We know that the Chiefs are known for their passing, right? But they love to establish the run early in the game to kind of set up the passing plays for later. And Isaiah Pacheco is going to be catching passes out of the backfield in this game as well. I don't think the Lions are going to have any chance of stopping him. He is incredibly explosive as far as his size and speed. We saw it last year. We know that Andy Reid likes to establish the run early in games, especially exploiting bad run defenses like the Lions. I think that they're going to test this run defense early and often. I don't think the run defense is going to have any answer for Isaiah Pacheco, and this is probably going to be a very, very high-scoring game. I want every bit of the Chiefs in this game, especially Isaiah Pacheco, against a terrible Lions run defense. Next and final player on my list that's a must-start for this week is Khalil Herbert of the Bears. Now, this is a guy who was the best running back in football last year from a yards per carry efficiency standpoint. This dude had 5.9 yards per carry, averaged 5.9 yards per carry from an efficiency standpoint as far as, his numbers from last year. He was highly efficient. Now, obviously, you've got some other running backs in the backfield with Roschon Johnson and Dante Foreman, but Khalil Herbert's going to head this backfield, guys. He's going to get a majority of the workload. And if you look at the Packers' defense last year, they allowed over 5 yards per carry to opposing offenses. So they were really, really bad at stopping the run this past season. And when you look at this game, I think it can go a few different ways. It could be a massive shootout, but it could be a game where the Bears just really try to establish a run game early and kind of keep the ball out of the Packers' hands because, the Packers do have some explosive offensive weapons. The Bears really don't have the best defense, so they probably want to keep their defense off the field in this game. So how are they going to do that, right? They're going to establish the run game early and often and try to control the time of possession. This is a very favorable game script for Khalil Herbert, and considering the fact that the game script is going to be in his favor and the Packers pretty much are helpless against stopping the run and probably will be helpless against stopping the run again this season. I love Khalil Herbert in this matchup. I think he's going to absolutely explode in week 1. So, if you have him on your bench, but you have a guy in your starting lineup that you're not so sure about, Khalil Herbert is a great player to plug in, and that's why I have him here as a must-start player for the week. Again, don't force these guys into your lineup if you have a better starter in front of them. But if you're not sure about the guy who's currently in your starting lineup because you don't like the matchup, please replace them with these guys. I'm very, very certain that all these guys I just mentioned are going to go off this week. Yeah. All right, guys. Appreciate you tuning in. Catch you later.